I just got back from the grocery store and I went there to get blueberries. There were two options, organic and non-organic. The organic blueberries were $8.99 for the box. The non-organic blueberries were on sale for $1.99. So like I can either buy the non-organic and have cancer later because it's all I can afford right now, or buy the organic and not pay my mortgage. So I'm just curious, like, how are people surviving in this economy? Like, seriously.
Over the past few years, grocery prices in the United States have surged, putting a strain on millions of households. While there are several factors driving this rise, including supply chain disruptions, labor shortages, and inflation, one major but sometimes overlooked contributor has been tariffs. Tariffs are taxes placed on imported goods, and when the U.S. government imposes them, the cost usually doesn't just stay with the importer or the manufacturer. It gets passed down to the consumer. This means that when tariffs are placed on products or materials that are used heavily in food production and packaging, grocery prices are often pushed higher. One key example is the tariffs on steel and aluminum that were introduced a few years ago. These metals are essential for making cans and other food packaging. When the cost of packaging rises, companies that produce canned vegetables, soups, soft drinks, and countless other items have to pay more. Those companies, in turn, increase their prices to maintain profits, and the extra cost eventually shows up on the shelves at the grocery store. Tariffs on agricultural goods have also had a huge impact. Many fruits, vegetables, and specialty foods that Americans enjoy year-round, like avocados, berries, and spices, are imported. When tariffs are applied to these goods, importers pay more to bring them into the U.S., and again, that added expense is passed along to consumers. In some cases, products have even become less available, driving prices up even further due to simple supply and demand. It's not just imports that have been affected. American farmers, too, have felt the pressure. When the U.S. places tariffs on goods from other countries, those countries often retaliate with tariffs of their own, targeting U.S. agricultural exports like soybeans, pork, and dairy. As a result, American farmers lose valuable overseas markets, and the domestic market gets flooded with excess supply. However, because farmers are earning less on their crops and livestock, many are forced to raise prices just to survive, contributing yet again to higher grocery bills. At the same time, tariffs have complicated supply chains and made it more expensive to import key farming equipment and fertilizer, increasing production costs for farmers across the country. Those costs ripple through the entire food system, from the fields to the supermarkets. The overall effect of tariffs has been to make food more expensive and less predictable. What was intended to protect American industries has, in many cases, ended up hurting American consumers, especially lower and middle-income families who spend a larger share of their income on groceries. At a time when inflation was already squeezing household budgets, tariffs added yet another layer of pressure, and it's a burden that shoppers are reminded of every time they walk into a grocery store.
Seems to me, at least at our grocery store, the price has gone up like 3 times in the last 3 weeks. My husband is a fitness trainer and he eats usually 5 eggs every morning, and it's definitely affected him, I think, the most, because he's not doing that anymore. Instead, he's eating oatmeal or whatever with protein powder. So he's definitely eating way less eggs than he normally would. For a family, I think it's been pretty tough, and I think people will travel to different stores if they know it's cheaper.
Everything going up except people's paychecks.
I still buy eggs, but I just do it less often. And I just eat different foods for breakfast rather than eating as much eggs as I used to when prices were half what they are right now.
I went to do my weekly grocery shopping, and tell me why a diet of rice and beans plus some grocery bags just cost me $80. $80. And I know what y'all are thinking. You must have impulse purchased something. You're right. I did. Brussels sprouts and hummus. How dare I? How dare I? And furthermore, my greatest sin was running out of butter. I should know better than to think little old me, deserve to have olive oil or butter. God forbid I want a fat or an oil involved in my food. Bread? Why was the cheapest loaf of bread $3? 3. As someone who starts every single morning with toast, this is not sustainable. Because I can't go any cheaper than toast in the morning. What's cheaper than toast in the morning? There isn't anything. It was a trick question. Trash bags? I'm about to start throwing my trash into the lawn and burning it at any time there isn't a burn notice. I'm from the olden days, a bygone era, where you could roll a cart down the grocery store, and if you filled it to the absolute brim, you would be lucky to break 100. This basket wasn't even all the way full. I wasn't even tilting, carrying it. No, very confidently. Weak me, just walking perfectly straight with my half-filled basket, thinking this can't break 50. There's no way. This isn't even a week worth of food. I start ringing it up. We hit 50 a quarter of the way through. $80. And for the rest of the week, I'm eating rice, beans, toast. I did get eggs, but in my defense, 30 for $10 in the year of 2025, that's a pretty damn good deal. $10 a paycheck, I can live with that. What I can't live with is $3 for a loaf of bread. Are you fucking kidding me?
American consumers have faced some of the highest grocery price increases in decades. While inflation, supply chain disruptions, and labor shortages have all played major roles, tariffs, government-imposed taxes on imported goods, have also been a significant and often under-discussed driver behind the rising cost of food. When tariffs are placed on imports, the immediate effect is higher costs for businesses that rely on those goods. However, businesses rarely absorb these costs themselves. Instead, they pass them on to the next link in the chain: distributors, retailers, and ultimately, the everyday shopper. One major example came from the tariffs on steel and aluminum introduced in 2018. These materials are critical for making cans used in food packaging. After tariffs of 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum were imposed, canned food producers saw their costs jump significantly. According to industry estimates, the cost of producing canned goods rose by roughly 6 to 10%, leading to price increases for everyday items like soup, vegetables, and sodas. A simple can of beans, for instance, went up by an average of 5 to 8 cents, a small number individually, but a serious burden when multiplied across an entire grocery cart and an entire population. Tariffs on imported agricultural products also took a direct toll. Goods from countries like Mexico and China, major suppliers of fruits, vegetables, nuts, and processed foods, were hit with tariffs ranging from 10% to 25%. The result was higher prices on staples such as avocados, tomatoes, apples, and snack foods. The American Farm Bureau reported that between 2018 and 2020, the average price for fresh produce rose nearly 8%, with tariffs cited as a key factor alongside weather-related supply issues. At the same time, retaliatory tariffs from China, Canada, and the European Union made it harder for American farmers to sell their products abroad. U.S. soybean exports to China, for example, dropped by over 75% between 2017 and 2019. Farmers, facing surplus crops and lower demand, still struggled to cover the rising costs of equipment, fertilizer, and fuel, many of which also became more expensive due to tariffs on manufactured goods and raw materials. Instead of seeing lower prices from oversupply, grocery stores often had to mark up products because of the added costs throughout the supply chain. Even American-grown meat and dairy became more expensive. For example, the average retail price of beef rose by about 20% between 2020 and 2022, a spike driven by a combination of pandemic disruptions and trade tensions. Meanwhile, a USDA report found that from 2019 to 2022, the overall cost of groceries in the U.S. rose by nearly 25%, a faster rate than in previous decades. While global factors like COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine played major roles, economists agree that tariffs contributed a noticeable and long-lasting upward pressure on prices, especially for key goods that Americans rely on daily. In the end, the goal of tariffs was to protect American industries and create a fairer trading environment. But for millions of American families, the immediate result has been felt most clearly in the checkout line, where the cost of filling a shopping cart has gotten heavier and heavier with each passing year.
So how do you feel about the tariffs?
Oh, well, they're absurd. I mean, they're completely absurd. He wants to tear the country down.
You believe that? You think he wants to tear the country down?
Well, he's doing everything he can to destroy every institution. Being a bully to the world is not really a good strategy. Even if he's successful tomorrow and China says you can have everything you want, it's not a good strategy. This is not the way we should be living our lives. I'm really hoping that a lot of Republicans who voted for Trump begin to see what's going on and realize how, they've been duped, basically. I would rather lose my savings and have the country turn around and have a change of heart, and then I would, give me more money. That's not what I'm about.
You'd rather lose your savings?
Yeah, I would give up my savings in exchange for having people realize what Trump is about and just really, really turning the country around.
We just had a big Easter egg hunt at the White House, thousands and thousands of eggs, and the price was down 87%. As you know, the cost of eggs has come down like 94% since we took office, and they're pretty much normally priced now.
Okay, I just went to the grocery store. That is not my personal experience. Now, I am a big city reporter.
You are indeed.
And it's possible that he's being misinformed by people, but a 93 or 94 or 87% drop in egg prices since he took office?
Yeah, so as you know, having gone to a store and everyone else who's gone to a store knows, none of those numbers is anywhere close to correct. So let's start with retail prices, the prices that shoppers are actually paying. In March, those rose to a record high, $6.23 per dozen. That's about a 26% increase from the month President Trump returned to office in January. Now, we don't yet have the April data. That's important. We may well have seen, I would say probably saw a decline this month. We don't know how much.
Because they're importing some eggs, right?
They are importing. There's a whole plan to reduce the prices. However, we know that it's nowhere near 87, 93, 94%. If it was a 93% drop, Jake, from the month President Trump took office, eggs would be selling for less than 38 cents per dozen. We know that's not the case.
So next time you're standing in the grocery store, staring at that $6 carton of eggs or $5 loaf of bread, just remember, it's not you, it's tariffs. They came for our wallets, and they didn't even say sorry. If you found this video helpful, or if you're just as tired of paying $50 for a small bag of groceries as we are, make sure to smash that like button, drop a comment telling us what grocery item shocked you the most, and subscribe to Orbit Point for more eye-opening content. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss a story that hits you right in the checkout line. Until next time, this is Orbit Point, where we break it all down one overpriced avocado at a time.